The next speaker is today Matias Pietilä, and Matias is a usability expert who has been working in the industry for 15 years or something. I think he will present himself better. Today's Matias speaks about product leadership and collaboration between business, developer and UX designers. So there might be some practical tips coming as well. So welcome, Matias.
Good morning, great to be here. Always interesting to see how your slides are shown when you are using an external computer. It seems that the font is different, so bear with me if some of the texts won't fit there. My name is Matias Pietilä. I'm the CPO at the company called, and like you said, I don't really know how to properly pronounce that in English. I would say maybe Newil and Bau. Basically, it looks a bit like German. It's a made-up word, but it's a growth company working in the real estate business, and very much a product company. And today I will be telling why I think being product-centric is relevant and how we are approaching that, and hopefully give some practical tips about that as well. I will quickly tell about my history so that you understand where I'm coming from. I used to be working at a company called Qvik for about 10 years as the head of design there. My background is in user experience, service design, stuff like that. We did sometimes manage to build some cool and great services, sometimes not so much. And I have been thinking like how to be able to kind of repeat the success. After that, I spent the last almost a year at Fennia, the insurance company, heading digital development efforts there. There's not much I can share of my achievements during that time. I can say, however, okay, it seems it's PowerPoint, so all the animations are broken. Cool, let's leave it at that. But yeah, you can see that it used to be hard to know if you are on the consumer or business side, but nowadays there's a line there, so if you have been wondering who came up with that, so yeah, it was me. But yeah, there may be some other things that will be launched later on that I was involved with, but let's see what happens. Anyway, now I'm working at this company called Newil Bau, and we have the vision to be creating the most compelling living experiences for modern people, so that we can have more beautiful cities and more sustainable way of living. And that's at the core of our company. And it's been operating for a couple of years actively now, focusing on the kind of the hardest of hardware buildings. And yeah, that part is going strong. And now we are focusing more on the software side, and that's something I'm going to be talking now. Just to give you context, we are growing quickly, so the recent FT 1000 list that is showing the fastest growing companies in Europe listed us as number 4 in Finland. So yeah, getting there. The talk has 2 parts. So imagine that those numbers kind of line up correctly. The font is different again. So first I'm going to be talking about product-centric organization, and the next one is practice. Imagine that the whole in practice is covered. So coming from design background, when working with developers at first, as a junior designer, you're thinking that, okay, you know, I would have designed something cool, but those stupid developers, they didn't deliver, and that's why it sucks. Then when you move forward, those animations. When you move forward, you're like a media guy. You're like, okay, I would have designed, and I know how to talk with developers. Together we can produce some nice stuff, but those stupid business people, they didn't let us do it properly. Then when you are a senior designer, you're like, okay, I know how to present my case. I know how to sell my ideas. And I also know when it does not make sense to do things in that kind of high fidelity way. And, you know, I can live with that as well. That's kind of the point that I reached as a consultant myself. And then it kind of felt that it's like we have a saying in Finnish that you are kind of carrying water into a well. So whenever you left, sometimes the product would be rebuilt. It was worse than the old one, and you're like, okay, yeah, what's the point? So my current mission is kind of trying to build something lasting, to build a culture that creates good stuff regardless of who is involved there. So it's not just temporary, but somehow lasting. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to focus on now. If you come from the design field, you see that there are a lot of diagrams where we put design and UX at the center of the universe, like used to be before Kopernikus figured out that Earth is not the center of the universe. Paul Adams is a great guy, and he had this kind of diagram that I will have to steal because I cannot tell this any better. This is also how I used to feel, that me as a designer, I'm working here, and before I get to the leadership part, and then there are all these uninteresting and boring functions in the company that don't really get it, and I better just try to work under the radar so that they don't notice, because that's the only way to get good stuff out. Because otherwise, some marketing person is going to ask me to add a logo to every screen, and somebody from sales says that let's screw it up by optimizing the wrong stuff, and so on. And it's a kind of a childish way and not really lasting. The only way to have a lasting way is to actually have an organization where everybody is having the shared goal and moving to the same direction and focusing on the same product. So that is a kind of vision. I've been defining this design field like this, and then there's the kind of product design that is overlapping the whole thing. And when I've been talking about product design, people tend to think chairs, and it's kind of bad term in that sense. Okay, that kind of animation. The better way of saying it, in my opinion, is kind of get paid for giving a shit. So everybody who cares of the product, I think that's the point, regardless of the terminology that you want to use. When we take a look at how products are typically managed in organizations, I think this is an enlightening diagram from Scrum Org PO training materials, listing like how different companies define their product owner, and the kind of textbook example says that the PO is the CEO of the product, kind of like a big deal, whereas in reality too often it looks maybe like this or even worse. So that the PO is mostly somebody who updates Jira and kind of tells what somebody else is telling that we have to build. Anybody seen this? Yeah. So it can often be that there's a product owner who says that, yeah, I'm a PO, except I don't have a product and I don't really own anything. PO has become some kind of like a throwaway catchphrase to refer to anybody who is managing something that is related to digital, but it's kind of lost its meaning, in my opinion. A bit like Antti was saying no is the most powerful thing that you can mostly do, because everything has a cost. There's a cost for designing and building stuff and all that, and most importantly there's the opportunity cost. Oh my, it's a mess, sorry. So basically I like this formula that Ash Moria has created, kind of combining or comparing products to a factory and kind of showing that the features are in the denominator, meaning that the more you add stuff, the more value it also needs to bring. Otherwise, you're just making your product worse. So basically, if you add a new feature to your product that is creating less value than your average feature, you're actually making the product worse. It's not so that always adding something is positive. Actually, if you add stuff that is bad, you are making it worse. So you have to be really careful when adding something and really know why you are adding it. So also, me as a designer, I thought that my role or job is to come up with ideas and be creative. And along the way, I learned it's rather to kill those ideas softly and politely, but still, and maybe say that we can try them later, but not to get everything included in the first version. Okay, that was the background about product-centric organization and why it matters. Now, the in practice part. Yep. So, I'm in a fortunate position that because I don't really have to evangelize, how do I say it? Anyway, promote this idea of being product-centric, because my kind of CEO, my boss, has already decided that that's what we want to be. So we want to do things differently in the market. We want to be really customer insight driven. We want that our homes are not defined by location like typically in the industry, but defined by what they are, what kind of a living product they are. So hence we have to really focus on the product, both on the physical one and the digital one. So we are kind of working in this way by default. We differentiate ourselves with these 4 pillars. We are beautiful and climate friendly. We are made to order. We have flexible financing options, and we have a digital platform for your living time services. Or if we don't have it yet, we will have at some point. So basically, we will have this consumer product that is offering a seamless made-to-order experience, and also that will be acting as a backbone for your superior NetB living experience. There are different steps in the process. We have identified the kind of information needs that we need to have there, and the kind of regulatory needs, but also different kind of commercial opportunities along the way, and ways to be able to delight our customers. So combining all these and systematically analyzing every step, we kind of are able to see what kind of things we build there. The current digital product that we have is something that will be replaced. It's only focusing on that second step, that reserving your apartment and doing some light customization. But we are going way beyond this in the next version. There's nothing new or weird here. We are using the kind of typical design thinking lenses there, and also have added this 4th one, sustainable, like you nowadays tend to do, because like I showed the vision, the sustainability is at the core of what we do. So that's why we always analyze every new idea, every new product concept through these 4 lenses. And this desirable lens has still been divided into three different points that we have analyzed that our customers value. You can see that the sustainable comes again there. It's a bit like Winnie the Pooh who mentions honey multiple times. But it is that important. We are following a very simple textbook process that is based on Moria's book, Running Lean. So first we document what we assume to be the truth. Then we validate the problem that the customers have. Then we design a solution, and then we validate the solution. Simple as that. Of course, it's not simple, but it's good to keep the idea simple, so that you don't get lost in your process. So when documenting your assumptions, we have this huge customer journey where we have documented that there's this one line for needs and pains, and one line for stuff that is not yet validated. And once we validate that, we can then move it down We can then move it down to the validated line, and that's how we can maintain what we know and what we don't know. So following the typical multiple diamond model, well, they actually do run in parallel, but just to keep it simple, I'm going to show it like this. But the point here is that we focus on the problem first, and not to ideas of solutions that somebody might have. And at every step, we analyze it through these 4 lenses, whether it makes sense to continue or not. And whenever we are able to kill an idea that is bad, we are happy so that we don't waste time continuing it any further. The interesting thing to me here is that we are having 2 worlds. We have a physical and digital world that we are working in, and it means that we also need to come up with ways how to have the digital, the physical world create something that is analogous to kind of working software that normal agile process is creating. So we create these guidelines that capture the idea of the physical product. An example could be my colleague is here designing the bike maintenance product aspect that we have together with our construction specialists. Like, how can we create a nice way of maintaining your bike in a way that it's still cost effective? And then different things live in different steps of the process there. I wonder when I started. Is that? 15 minutes. Yeah, so that time is still working. Yeah, nice. Then I don't have to rush. So basically, one tool. Now some concrete tips. So one tool I've really found useful is Notion. Are you using Notion? Yeah, it's a tool that kind of combines like Jira and Confluence kind of worlds and does it in a way that doesn't suck. It's also very open and hence kind of hard to approach because you can kind of build anything there. But we have been building a system where we have our kind of strategic goals and daily tasks connected in a way that whenever we advance our daily tasks, they still are linked to the larger goal. We can also have both task management and documentation in the same place. And so when we do meeting notes, we can add tasks in that meeting note, and those tasks are then connected to different projects and people, and everything can be seen from different points of view. So yeah, that's an interesting and promising tool. But yeah, still figuring it out. Another very concrete thing that we've been using a lot is to really, Steve Blank says, get out of the building, but it's even nicer if you don't have to go anywhere. So we've set up this NetB Friends community of people who want to be kind of co-creating with us, letting us know their needs, and we can easily send them email surveys or then have interviews with them. And Typeform has been very useful for that. You can nicely integrate Typeform with your marketing automation tools to send those emails and have all info linked so that you know what's happening there. And yeah, a lot of such services have been created. People are very eager to answer when you ask them nicely, and this way we have like no excuses to go without data, because we can always in a day or two get some data to back up our decisions. So typically we ask in this kind of format, kind of combining the steps of validating the need and then validating the solution in the same survey, so that we can first ask like, how do you currently solve something? And this is kind of more reliable data, and then we can ask like how happy you are with your current solution. So if it's not broken, we don't fix anything, and then we can give room for open feedback for the ones who want to tell it. and very many people actually do want to tell us a lot. The kind of idea that you know keep your questionnaire short and only ask like 5 questions. I think it's a bad advice. I think it's good to let people give you everything they want to tell you. And then we can ask them, if we have our own solution ideas already, we can ask people to react to those things. Of course, this is more like something that people are guessing how they might want to do something, so not as reliable, but still good to also get that info. And then also to ask like the willingness, first of all, to see if people think our idea is valuable. If it's valuable, but they don't want to pay for that, it's still something that we can advertise and use in the marketing. And then if it's something that could actually be turned into an upsell item, to also understand that. So a quick way of quickly validating if our ideas make sense and keeping that going all the time. We have multiple such surveys active like all the time, so we keep on getting this information. And we have set it in a way that all those live responses flow to our Slack channels, so that everybody in the company can kind of see what our customers are saying, and we have this kind of mindset that data is flowing to us and we are learning all the time. Also, Typeform lets you do this live summary use of those surveys. We can filter out sensitive data there, but then everybody at any point can go and take a look at the current summary of our responses. So again, nothing new here, but when it's done well, and not so that you do a report every once in a while and then you hide the document as a PDF form somewhere on your intranet. So to rather keep it where people are living and working and always visible. And of course, there's also room for one-on-one interviews. I like to use this problem interview and solution interview frameworks as suggested by Moria in his book to structurize what I'm asking. And still remembering that we are not finding solutions here. We are understanding problems so that we then as experts can design the best solution to the problem. So this takes off some pressure of the questions like, how can you prove that the n is large enough? That is this a truth? Well, maybe it's not a truth, but at least we know that these people have this problem and it's already valuable. So the way to maintain the big picture and to do it in a way that we do not design too much upfront. I think it's useful to have your customer journey documented, have different kind of service components on the way that you know that this is something we believe we will be building at some point. Maybe have the title and the tagline and some kind of simple analysis of those 4 lenses that we are using, maybe some metrics, have them around, and then also have your vision document, which would be very much what Antti was saying of the product strategy, to have that documented, and then have a design system containing everything related to your UX stuff. And I think it should also have something of tech, but it's not included here now. And then when the time is right, it will be interesting to see how these animations are shown now. When the time is right, okay, like that. So you bring these together, and then you create the user interface specification for that specific concept, and then you make it to the level that it's not totally finalized. It's like enough to be started. Then you get the development team working with that, and designers and developers work together to make it optimal, to kind of avoid the kind of waterfall aspect where somebody designs something that cannot be properly implemented. And this way you then get the best solution possible based on your knowledge. Of course, then you need to measure how it works and come back if needed. But at least the first version tends to be as good as it can get. Okay. Certain key points of this presentation is that everything has a cost. So as boring as it is, scoping is the most important thing that you can do, really focusing on what matters and doing that well. There will be a next version, so you don't have to cram everything into the first version, but you can kind of take a step back and see what's working, and then iterate. I believe one of the reasons for scope creep is that people are too afraid that there will never be a new version. I will only launch something once, and after that it's only like maintenance mode, and nothing ever gets built after that. So that's why they want to hysterically put everything in the first version. But if we can kind of break that mindset and tell everybody that, okay, you know, we're launching the next version in 2 weeks, so you don't have to get everything included right away. And then design or product is a shared responsibility, not so that some silo in the company owns it, but rather so that the whole company is focusing on building it together. So that's the way to make it work. Okay, that was everything I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Matias. Thanks. So now we have a few minutes for questions. Anyone?
I can also say at this point, while you wait for your questions, that if you want to learn more or get involved, so you can use that link to get into our family list.
Matias, I liked a lot about this kind of product design is a shared, maybe not a shared responsibility because we know what that leads, but at least it's a shared job for every people. You define it as everyone who cares about the product. And I like that a lot. But how do you kind of speed up this kind of mindset change and cultural change? It's not that easy to understand, but it's more like a change in culture. You have put a lot of data about users and their behavior available. Is that one way to do that?
Yeah, I started laughing because I thought that my answer is likely that I quit and I changed jobs. So I went to work in a smaller company, so it's easier there. But in our company, it is exactly that trying to make it visible that because typically if you say that, hey, we need to research this, the answer is okay, but we can't wait like half a year. Whereas it can only be that you need to use 2 days for that. So doing research doesn't always have to mean that it takes ages. So to really show that you can move quickly and get stuff done, I think is the best approach there.
Yeah, speed.
From roadmap to development, you show this UI specs and then the cooperation. How you actually define what is enough in the first place, or do you have some ideas? Because my experience is that it's hard to kind of find the limit that what is the enough for the first person.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm afraid I cannot give a good answer to that. I can give like an example how it sometimes fails. I've seen, you know, it's easy to preach from the state that, you know, do MVP and take away everything that is not strictly necessary. And then I've seen many times when you launch something like that people are angry when it doesn't have everything that they wanted it to have. Many companies who have their like old products that have like a gazillion of features. So if you remove one single one of them in your new version, so there's always somebody with loud mouth who comes to complain that, okay, the new version sucks because it doesn't have this. So yeah, it's also about communication, especially if you keep the old version still running, that you know that you can go there and you will be served. it may also be a matter of feeling appreciated by those customers, that they feel that, I'm not listened. So even if the functionality wouldn't be in reality that important for them, but they feel that something has been taken away from them. So it's also in that sense psychological. An answer to a topic like that can be to kind of listen more and give the idea that you care. But yeah, case by case, like always.
Thank you, Matias. Really interesting presentation. So you are now working in building industry, where I believe deadlines are more hard deadlines, like because materials needs to arrive certain time, you need to build this, and after that, and there are contracts, things need to be delivered in time, this and that. But now there is a software, and in this environment, the workplace, did you have issues with, in software the deadlines can be really tricky, as you know, it's much complex, you can't really estimate things when they can be delivered and so on. Did you have issues around this, and if you had, how did you deal with them, like communicating the difference between those two?
Yeah, exactly. Deadlines can be hard, and it's a totally new world for me to kind of understand that, okay, we need to order something now so that we have it in 2 years. I'm used to thinking that somebody writes a line of code in the command line and we have a server. So it's different. Yeah, the current situation is that I'm mostly talking like vaporware stuff here. So this is communicating what we are about to build next. I've only been in a company a couple of months, and during that time we've been just hacking our existing systems whenever we've been having new apartments to be sold. So we just make it work with the existing ones, and yeah, it can be sometimes the time pressure can be an issue. For example, this week we have been very busy because we had a new kind of way of pricing certain upgrades, and the system we currently have didn't support that. So then we need to analyze, like, can we build support for that in 2 days, or if not, so how do we communicate this upgrade pricing in printed materials which still need to be printed? So there are many things that are interconnected. So yeah, clearly that's an issue. I'm trying to use a way where the software side wouldn't have such hard dates, but we would be launching whenever we have something ready. But then the physical side needs to be more strictly managed, and we need to have dates there. So they are not totally working in the same way. But I think it would be a mistake to take the kind of strictness or rigidness of the physical world and also translate that to software, that we cannot launch anything only once a year, because that's how we work on this side, but rather keep that flexible and then make the physical side as flexible as it can be.
All right. Thank you, Matias, and let's give a big hand.
Thank you.